Thank you, Christa, for agreeing to be part of this session and for agreeing on this fireside chat. Really nice to have you here today. So we're here to talk about employee and learner experience, and the old adage goes that happy employees make happy customers, and I think this same is really kind of something that applies in education as well. And actually, like many times we talk about employee and learner experiences if they are separate things, but actually they're sort of both different sides of the same coin. Now, to I think start off with this session, what I'd like to do first is that some of the listeners here, they might not be that familiar with Aalto University, and could you tell us a little bit about Aalto?
Yes, first of all, thank you for having me here. All we are missing now is the fireplace, but the chat will be nice, I'm sure. And I will start with the more important, which is Aalto University. We are one of the leading universities in Finland. We have about 17,500 students, 4,000 of staff. And we were founded some 10 years ago by merging three very different universities. And they were the University of Technology, University of Business and Economics, and University of Arts and Design. And you can just imagine that it was a bit messy at the beginning. We were universities that had their own over 100 years of history. The disciplines, they were very, very different. And it was just a zoo, to be frank. And the cultures collided very strongly. Everybody wanted to preserve their own identity. And it was not an easy task. Fortunately, we had great people leaders because it all starts with people. We don't do anything without people. And as they were working with the culture and maybe trying to figure out how to start designing a strategy from the IT side, we did the merger, or actually we rebuilt the whole IT infrastructure. It was a political decision also. IT people are very passionate about their systems and their environments and everything. And just if we would have taken one environment and said that this is now the common environment, it would have not worked well. So we decided to build a totally new IT infrastructure, and we did that from networks to common networks to new domain, all the services on the top of that, and the world looked a bit different back then than it does now, but still we are trying to make future-proof and design it so that it could carry the new solutions in the future that we don't even know about yet. And that was kind of the beginning. So we were not able to start building a new strategy and even think about digitalization until maybe 2015. It was 2010 when the merger happened. And for myself, I'm really a dinosaur in the university world. I started working in one of those universities last millennia. So it was 1999 when I started working in IT help desk. And after that, I've done had various type of jobs, tasks, but always in IT. Even though I don't consider myself to be a tech leader, I'm more of a people and ecosystem and network person. But every time I thought about maybe going somewhere else, doing something else, I something very, very exciting happened. Like, hey, let's form this new university. And would you like to head the design and implementation of its IT infrastructure? Heck yeah. So, and as I said, it was not, the technology is maybe 30% of all the efforts. 70% come from people, culture, mindset, competencies, all that. So that's about Aalto University and me.
Oh, that's great. But yeah, with such a long background, you've obviously seen the change as well firsthand. So that's must be kind of like also a benefit of being in the university world for such a long time. But it's
Well,
really
it has its advantages and disadvantages.
yeah, I can imagine. Okay, but let's start off by talking about the sort of importance and role of learner and employee experience at Aalto University. So, for you as CIO, kind of what is the importance of these topics to you?
Oh, I think well, quality of education, of course, is very important, and research, but all that comes from the experience too. And I don't know if you can really separate the employee and customer experience, because, well, as you said before, happy employees make happy customers, but that's not the full truth, not at least in the university world. We have a kind of a special environment, since we have students also working for us, maybe part-time, maybe full-time, maybe some other arrangement, but you can't, it's more important to build a community than think of separate roles, that are you a student or are you an employee, researcher, teacher, whatever. And that's what we have been trying to do from the start, building a sense of community, building a sense of togetherness. And of course, we did invest a bit on the campus, because times were different back then. But we also started building our digital, our living strategy and our digital strategy back then. So we had quite a huge digital ambition. And now, if I think of it, the pandemic, it has affected us enormously. Well, some students benefit from it, but I think the majority, at least to all the researchers, they suffer from it. Of the loss of togetherness, sense of community. They isolate. They get depressed. Their studying motivation goes down, and that's something that we need to think about in the future, even if we do hybrid. So I actually have a question for you. How do you see this? What are the efforts you are making to build digital solutions so that they actually promote the community and the sense of togetherness, instead of put you in your own room with your own laptop or whatever? So what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Christa, and I thank you for asking it. So I think there's two things that definitely come to mind that we're doing with Salesforce. The number one thing is that I think probably most universities are actually interested in is the Student Success Hub product, which the way that it's built and the way that the product is designed to support students is that the whole idea is to make the support experience more proactive and more inclusive by bringing together all the different people who are supporting the student, whether they're the tutors they work with, the teachers they work with, the people who are directing their thesis, or or just to support this person, and really enabling them to proactively see what's going on with the student, making that data and information visible to them, and making that communication and those processes that are supporting the student really transparent for the student and the staff as well. And I think that's one of the most interesting aspects of Salesforce for most education institutions. And then the other thing I think that is something we see often is by using Experience Cloud, which is the sort of product in Salesforce that enables you to build different sort of let's say portals for user groups. This is something that's very often used to enable interaction between people at university. So you're not kind of just building, services in internal systems for internal people and external systems for external people separately, but you're kind of bringing them both together by building the sort of portals on top of the same data and same technology. So I think those are sort of clearly the two things that are, I think, most interesting for most institutions when they're looking for Salesforce to kind of answer these types of questions. So that's a really good question.
That's a good answer. What really resonates me first is the eliminating waste, so that our core business is teaching, education, and the students should be able to focus on that. Sucking in information as sponges, and instead of running from one office to another, thinking of how do I get this service or this problem handled, and you support the whole life cycle. I mean, the life cycle from our point of view starts already when you're trying to decide what you're going to be as a grown up. And what is the study offering, all that. So we should help the young people to decide on their career. So that's something that can be made more fluent with these type of solutions. And the other thing that you mentioned is data. We want to be a data-driven university, and it's very hard when your master data is scattered. It's very messy, and actually we have these national efforts about having our common data together from all the universities or institutions of higher education. So there's a lot of work there to do.
Yeah, that's true. I just want to go back to something you said earlier, because you were talking about the importance of learner and employee experience in the strategy at Aalto, and how that's a strategic item for you. Can you maybe sort of, I know that many are probably interested in how do you sort of then execute on that strategy. So can you tell us a bit about how do you actually implement strategy across Aalto, and how do you also align the organization across Aalto on the different layers to be behind that same strategy?
Yeah, good question. First of all, I mentioned that we have a living strategy. It needs to adapt to the changing world all the time. I mean, and the changes, it's just faster all the time. And we have a sustainability crisis. We have digital technical disruption. We have the whole business model of universities. Higher education is changing. We can't think of it as before. So the funding is changing for us. You probably don't know it, but in Finland, university, higher education, education is free for European people, and we get our funds somewhere else. But we need to answer those questions. And in education, we need to think of our business models. We need to think about things, and overall, we have to think about building a community, and it's about not just how would I say. We need to be on the pulse of our students all the time, and we need to change the strategy to match the current problems. I mean, if you think of these past events, we have had pandemics. We're having war crises, and you never know what's going to happen. So implementation of the strategy is a lot easier when you include everybody in building it, whether it's the overall strategy of Aalto University or our digital strategy. But we're halfway there when we've built it together, and people, they don't need to be afraid for their jobs. They don't need to think that this digitalization is coming and eating up their jobs. We have so many new jobs coming that we don't even know about, and that's where you invest in people. You have to be open, you have to be honest, you have to be supportive and proud of them, and give them chances to reskill, to build their competencies, to see that they have a future with us, even though the work life or the tasks they are performing might change a lot. But this also begins from the people.
Yeah, true. But yeah, you touched upon very interesting point there, because that fear is something that you see very often with employees when talking about digitalization. That fear of like change, and fear of losing your job, and how do you upskill and so on. So it's very, very good to hear that you're kind of already taking that into account in how you design kind of how you work with employees and help them overcome these things. I want to actually maybe transition a bit and talk about these challenges that you have faced when you sort of focused more on the employee and learner experience now in the digital age. So I know you and I spoke earlier about this move to this 24/7 operating model, and how that has changed, and how the demands have changed. Can you maybe expand on that a bit, and what it means for employee and learner experience in Aalto that you have this new 24/7 requirement in your operating?
Well, in universities, we can't really change the work agreements, and we don't have the funds that big corporations have. So you need to rely on the big corporations on bulk services like email, web services. We use Teams, Zoom, things like that. So that's kind of the only way to face those challenges. And we moved to the cloud. It's not easy since we have GDPR. Sorry for the cuss word, but we need to. And we don't actually know how that affects us, since nobody's taken anyone to court from higher education institutions yet. So we need to be very careful with GDPR, and we have to comply with, let's say, Microsoft's spam filters. We can do. We don't have so much more control over things anymore, and that's the trade-off we have to make in order to guarantee that our certain services are 24/7. The other thing that we're trying to do now is to form coalitions. I mean, like we talk about Digivision 2030. That's kind of an interesting. You might want to go and see Digivision 2030.fi. I know Digivision, it sounds like, I don't know, a kind of a cheap TV series or Eurovision or something like that, but it's actually pretty cool. And we're just starting. So please, take a look, and maybe we have this secret dream that we can extend it to the whole Europe, that we can have joint platforms and joint data, and we can carry the student identity across borders.
Yeah, that's very ambitious, but like a visionary goal to have, I think. You actually touched upon something that we had the option for guests to submit questions beforehand, and so you touched upon this question of privacy and security. And I was wondering if you can maybe expand a bit on that from your point of view, that sort of, universities and Aalto as well, you're sort of digitalizing more and more services. You have more and more applications, and how do you see that has changed? What's the challenge for Aalto when it comes to security and privacy, also from like a data point of view, and how have you worked to overcome those challenges?
Well, first of all, the privacy, I just actually, I won't go back to GDPR because I don't like it. But in terms of security, we need to rethink security again since what's happening in our neighbor countries, and it's kind of, which one do you want to have, pandemic or misinformation? How do you balance those? But it's always more secure to have quality platforms that take care of your service processes than just field of applications that don't maybe talk to each other. The data is wrong, or not wrong, but it's inconsistent, and so it's easier to protect platforms than actually small application landscapes.
Yeah. And is that also kind of part of the reason why Aalto has moved towards this sort of like adopting platforms for?
Yes, that's one of it's a big reason, but it's also about maintaining those, and you don't have to do so many integrations. The experience for users, it's more consistent when we talked about one counter service for a long time in the real life. That's what we want to implement in the digital world too. So it's of course, it's user experience, it's security. In the long run, I believe that it gives us better quality, better security, and it's cheaper than just doing integrations all the time when your application life cycle is from 3 to 5, 7 years now, but in the future it will be shorter all the time. So it's kind of more sustainable to invest in platforms than applications.
Yeah, that's a good point, and I think it was actually what you said reminded me of something that I think it was Mikko Hyppönen, the security expert from Finland, who said that comparing any IT budget of any institution and how much you can actually put forward towards like security of that solution, if you compare that to something that a platform provider can put in terms of resources for security of that platform, then you cannot really compete with that.
Exactly, and you need to have so many different competencies, even just in the IT world nowadays, that you would have to hire, like, I don't know, 5,000 IT people, but that's why you need to have strategic partners that you can trust, that help you taking advantage of those platforms. and somebody you can rely on, and maybe we can in the future form these own petri dishes, these farms where we grow new experts that we can later on send out to the world for after better salaries than in the universities.
Okay. We pivoted there a bit on security, but I think it's a really interesting topic as well, and I think it's an interesting thing to sort of look at security and then the experience of the user, and you already mentioned that those are sort of like something that you have to also balance out between each other. So I think it's an interesting topic. Going back to experience, I think one of the challenges that there is for learners, and I think this is probably true for employees as well, that we've seen during the pandemic especially, is that it's really difficult to maintain engagement and well-being in this remote mode and support that. Have you seen that challenge at Aalto, and how have you sort of worked to improve engagement and well-being when it comes to remote services and digitalizing services?
Well, as I said, we have done a lot in the past. First, you have to have a really good digital strategy, or first the overall strategy, then the digital strategy, and then you need to invest in people, and you need to have fluent processes. We did have processes. We did have a lot of processes. So starting to actually look at them, and everybody embraces change as long as you don't have to change the way you are working. And those processes need to be, now I'm using the term user-friendly. And when I'm saying user, I mean the whole chain, whether it's the one, the crew that implements those, designs them first, implements them. They need to have proper tools for that. And after that, you have those who operate it, whether it's the tech people, end user support, study services, whatever. Their experience matters. And then there's the end user that needs to have the good experience. And we actually, you were asking me before, how do we measure these things? How do we measure experience? Because we want to be a data-driven university, so we need to measure things. User experience is kind of, it's probably the hardest thing to measure, since it's so subjective overall. I mean, somebody likes this and the other one doesn't. And but the best thing always is to, if you are, ask the people whose experience you are measuring. And of course, we have a lot of surveys for students. We have Aalto surveys. We have national surveys to benchmark. In Finland, we have international surveys, so we can benchmark everywhere, or at least in Europe. And but still, I don't know, kind of going to the campus, that's the key, meeting people, whether it's in study halls, cafeterias, restaurants, hallways. That's the most important thing to do, to constantly be on the pulse of your partners, your students, your whole ecosystem, the stakeholders. And that's what we have tried to do at Aalto. We want to have a very low hierarchy. And that's, for example, our president, Ilkka. I don't know, that's kind of an American term, president. I don't know if you're using it, but if you are Harry Potter fans like I am, you know that in Hogwarts he's called the headmaster. So Ilkka is our headmaster, rector, president, and he does not have an office of his own at all. He does not even have a cubicle.
Yeah.
He's totally mobile, and he works where it's appropriate. And so does my boss lady, who answers to him, Kati. Hi, Kati, if you're watching. And I do so, and my whole team.
Yeah.
Hi, you too. I love you. They're all mobile, and it makes them work where it's needed and different places. Since we have 6 schools, we have different several buildings. So you have a meeting there, you decide to work the rest of the day maybe there, and so on. So that's something that we want to promote, that anyone can anytime come up to you and say, hey, I don't like this, or hey, this is super, or I want to ask you a question, or maybe suggest a development idea.
Yeah, I remember when you told me that anecdote. It's a really, really interesting one to hear. But it's certainly kind of like living that or setting that example of sort of like being available and not kind of setting yourself above or outside of the community. And that's actually something I sort of wanted to make sure that we have the time to touch upon, because you already mentioned this before. And I know you've spoken about this many times, that community is sort of really important for you. And I remember when we were sort of preparing for this session, you told me that very specifically something that stuck with me is that sort of like you don't separate learner and employee experience, that you don't separate learners and employees, but it's like all one Aalto community.
Yeah.
So could you maybe expand on that a bit and help us and everyone sort of understand what does that mean for you actually, and for Aalto, and how have you made that happen, that you have built this one Aalto community?
Well, we've done, of course, a lot of things in the past when it was still possible to meet in real life. We had rope pulling contests against our management teams and students. So we had fairs. We have very few spaces where students are not allowed. Okay, our server rooms, places. Well, even I'm not allowed there. So we want our campus to be accessible, and that's something that I think that has experienced a bit of inflation during the pandemics, and that's why we need your help to build more inclusive, more community building digital solutions also.
Yeah, that's true. So one of the things I want to ask you is that I know that you've adopted Salesforce as a sort of digital service platform at Aalto University. Can you perhaps explain to us a bit about how you see it, kind of what's the role of Salesforce at Aalto as a digital service platform, what that means, and how it drives value for you in employee and learner experience?
Yeah, I think it's a high quality platform that looks at the whole life cycle from the beginning to the end, uses data as decision making helper, and reduces waste, as I said before. And I have to say that we're still in the very beginning of our journey. The ramp up took more time than we thought because we didn't have enough competencies. We needed to build them up. And of course, we had a great partner to help us, but you can't rely just solely on the partner. You need to have those certain strategic competencies yourself. That's why we need the farm where we grow those competencies later on. But I would actually pass the question right back at you. Since you've seen our whole struggle from having ambitious dreams and plans and realizing all of a sudden that we don't have enough resources, we don't have enough competencies. We're kind of a trailblazer, at least in Finland, in this area. So maybe you could share people that what did you learn from this, and what are your recommendations for our kind of organizations?
Yeah, that's a great question. Again, I mean, I think there was a lot of good in the way that Aalto has approached this whole digital effort. I mean, first of all, this culture of sort of inclusiveness. It's really something that inclusiveness and also innovation and daring, that's part of sort of the Aalto DNA, is something that has really helped us, at least as a partner, to support you, because from the beginning when Fluido started working with Aalto, we have really seen that what makes you kind of different from many other organizations is that you really were immediately looking for a really strategic partner who works really close, almost sometimes indistinguishable from your own teams, side by side, in sort of building solutions and value together. And I think that has been one of the key strengths. And if I look at other organizations that are doing similar kind of work, then the bigger the transformation and the more ambitious it is, I think the more important it is to sort of really bring in the partners you're working with and collaborate with them quite closely, and also include them in making sure that they understand your vision and strategy. And that leads me to the second point, which I think is that with Aalto, you have always had a really clear vision of what you want to achieve, and you have spent a lot of time communicating that vision. And I think that's not just in education, but across industries. If you look at which institutions or organizations are really successful in digitalizing, I think it is those organizations that are really strong in formulating and communicating that vision across all the teams, so that you have everyone who is working to actually execute your plan on the same page, understanding what it is that the end result and success looks like. And I think those are some of the really key aspects. And the third thing that I would maybe mention is that Aalto, when we started working together, you actually at the same time were going through a very ambitious sort of organizational change, where you change the roles of IT and the departments in how you run processes and how you run projects and your portfolio management. And I think something that makes you successful is that you really work with these fusion teams where you have IT and business working side by side together on goals. And many times you see that it's sort of very IT driven or very business driven, or at least they are sort of separate inside the organization, working on their own areas. But at Aalto, really, by working together, they have sort of been able to realize the most potential value. And I mean, the ramp up, as you said, has been very, very fast. So within 1 year, you have achieved a lot implementing on the platform. So that's really, really ambitious and really fun to have worked on that together with you, I think.
Okay. I have 4 rules of thumb, even though I only have 2 thumbs. But
please share.
First, take care of your people.
Yeah.
You don't do anything without them. And second is keep business running. You can't sell new digital solutions if you can't take care of your current, maybe a bit awkward solutions, but still. So keep business running. Then do digitalization with the resources you have left, and do it well. Make the change count, and give people chocolate. They like it and make them happy.
That's a very, very true. Okay. So actually, with just a few minutes left, the final question that I had for you, which you already sort of covered, but maybe you can expand on that a bit, is that, I'm sure there are many in the audience who would be very interested in sort of getting some key insights or kind of key learnings from your experience with Aalto and being on this journey. So could you maybe share one or two insights from the Aalto journey towards better employee and learner experience, and what do you think other leaders in this space should be looking at?
Mm-hmm. Well, if you look at our values, responsibility, courage, and collaboration, that's something that you need to embrace. You need to have strong values and work for them. One of my wise mentors once said that if you want to do or perform a change, don't do a small change. It's not worth it. Aim big. Of course, the people, their competencies. Make sure that you have a good staff, especially now when we need to do remote leadership. So you really need to trust your team, trust for them to communicate the mission, vision, value, strategy, all that roadmaps to down the line, so to say. So trust your people, take care of them. I think I've said that so many times, but it's so important. And have a good head architect. Hi, Patrick. And plan the change, communicate the change, plan it together with people, and measure it also. Was this what we aimed for? Do benefits realization? So many people measure just IT projects that were they in budget, in time, but they don't actually measure the benefits that they aimed for.
That's very true.
And remember people.
Yeah, and chocolate.
Yes, that too.
Very good. So thank you, Christa. I think we're out of time. Thank you for a very insightful session. It was great having you here again.
Thank you.
And I think next we have a coffee break.
Again, yeah, chocolate.